What is going on, everybody? RoyalRapids here, and welcome back to once again another Hardcore Nuzlocke video. Today, we're going to be taking on Pokemon Crystal using only Johto Pokemon. Now, you might be thinking, this is going to be pretty easy. You can just use Blissey, Scizor, Crobat. Nope, I'm banning all the Kanto evolutions. No Scizor, no Blissey, no Crobat, none of that. We're using only brand new Johto Pokemon, such as Furret, Skiploom, Noctowl, Quagsire, Pokemon like that. I'm not allowing me to use Kanto evolutions because, for the most part, those are some of the best Pokemon in the game. The Kanto Pokemon and the new Kanto evolutions, such as obviously Scizor, Blissey, as I mentioned before, are the only good Pokemon present in the game. Johto Pokemon, for the most part, are rather sparse, as you don't find a whole lot of them, and most of the good ones, like Houndoom and Tyranitar, are locked behind the post-game. However, one of the good ones here is going to be our starter, and we go with the only fire type available in the main story, being Cyndaquil. Obviously, Houndour is also a Johto Pokemon, but we cannot access it, as it is post-game only. I believe it is found in Mount Silver, although I could be wrong. I know it is Kanto. I believe in the remake, this was fixed, and you could catch it in the Safari Zone, and after killing a stupid Kanto Pokemon, Pidgey, we ain't got none of those on our team. We run into our first eligible team member, that being a Sentret. Now, if you look here at the naming theme, you can see that I'm naming my Pokemon after United States capitals. Here we have Boston, the Cyndaquil, catching our new two team members, Harrisburg, the Sentret, and Reno, the Dunsparce. Unfortunately, I overleveled Boston for the first gym battle against Faulkner, although I don't feel like that's going to be much of an issue. Because if you know anything about Johto games, you know that Dunsparce is absolutely busted in these first two gyms. As Rage is an absolutely insane move for the early game, and Dunsparce has relatively good stats, being a mono evolution Pokemon. It has pretty good stats for the early game, and it can take a ton of hits, allowing its Rage to build like crazy, and it absolutely annihilates these early game gym leaders. After defeating Faulkner, we're on the road to Azalea Town. First up, picking up the egg from Professor Elm's assistant, which obviously will hash into an eligible encounter. If you ever played a Johto game, I'm sure you know what this is. Anyways, on the next route, we run into our, I believe, only grass-type encounter of the run if you don't pick Chikorita, that being Hoppip. And as you can see here, we run into actually a really tough battle with this hiker. We have nothing that can hit this Onix for super effective or even neutral damage, as we only have normal-type moves. Normal and fire-type moves, that is, if you count Ember. But luckily, thanks to the power of Rage, we do defeat the hiker after experiencing a weird graphical glitch, and it's time to take on the Bug Gym leader, Bugsy. Super creative name. And once again, it is going to be the ultimate Rage Fest, as Reno is an absolute boss in the early game, as I previously mentioned. It's the same story as versus Faulkner, as Metapod and Kakuna can only use Tackle and Poison Sting, respectively, and Scyther has Fury Cutter, which, as you know, if how that move works, the first couple of hits are, like, super weak compared to how it turns out later on in the fight. So if you can get hit with a couple of weak Fury Cutters from Scyther, your Rage will be boosted to the point where it can near one-shot the thing. As a crit, I don't even think really mattered there, as 2 Rages down the Scyther and earn us the easiest second gym badge of our life. Next up is the second rival battle against Silver. Here he leads out with his trusty Ghastly, and unfortunately here with Reno, we can't actually damage it. I didn't realize that in Generation 2, moves like Glare that are status moves matter with type, and honestly still might to this day. I'm not entirely sure. We switch in Boston, and even though he gets put to sleep, we get an early wake up, and after an Ember, a Burn, and a second Ember, the Ghastly is sent back to the grave, leading into Croconaw. Fortunately for us, its best attacking move is Water Gun, which isn't really a worry for us as we bring in Raleigh. But unfortunately for Raleigh here, despite it being a grass type, it doesn't actually know any grass type attacks, leading for you to poison the Croconaw with Poison Powder. But a couple scratches do really big damage here, and I go for Sleep Powder accidentally on a misclick instead of Synthesis, forcing me to switch. In comes Harrisburg, the newly evolved Furret, which evolved at level 15. As we go for a Defense Scroll to better tank scratches. Unfortunately, it goes for Leer, which completely canceled it out. But then goes for Water Gun, which is a special attack that doesn't matter anyways, and 2 more stab tackles down the Croconaw, leading to his final team member, Zubat. I stay in here and go for Quick Attack, which does about half, and after a bite, a second Quick Attack downs the Zubat, and allowing us to defeat Silver for the second time in this run. After picking up the TM for Headbutt, we headbutt a few trees and pick up our first, what would normally be nighttime encounter here, a Hoot Hoot, giving us our first flying type of the run. Then we pick up Leddybutt, useless, and Spinarak, also most likely useless. But hey, encounters are encounters. You can use them for fodder if we need to. And hey, speaking of fodder, here's Togepi. After picking up a bunch of useless encounters, we take on what many consider to be the hardest gym leader in the game, Whitney. We lead off with St. Paul here. The Spinarak is a super lucky poison with Poison Sting on the first attack. We don't really plan to use St. Paul here, so we just let it go down to a Metronome from Clefairy, but we're bringing in Raleigh. Now, Raleigh's job here is just to slowly whittle down the Clefairy. from poison damage and tackle. After a double slap brings us down to 30 HP, we go for Synthesis to heal up to 43. A double slap hits 4 times, bringing us down to 23. A Synthesis brings it to 36, but Clefairy rolls Ice Punch from Metronome, bringing down the Hoppip. We then switch into Olympia, we get the Revenge skill on Clefairy, leading into Miltank, and after a rollout, we gamble on a 60% accuracy Hypnosis and hit it, which is super lucky. After staying in, hitting a couple growls, which will lower the cow's attack, which will be super helpful, it stays asleep for multiple turns, which is mega clutch. A rollout does almost no damage after it wakes up, but unfortunately for us, we're going to have to gamble on another Hypnosis, which we somehow hit. We're getting super lucky with Hypnosis in this fight. We're bringing in Boston. Miltank is asleep before we go for a smoke screen on it, lowering the cow's attack. It's now -3 attack, -1 accuracy here before it hits a relatively weak stomp. And an Ember does about a 5th, it seems like. A second Ember brings it down even lower before it misses an attack. After a stomp does almost no damage, we don't flinch, and here comes the slogfest part of the fight. This Miltank loves to go for Milk Drink here, and we keep whittling it low with Ember before it keeps spamming Milk Drink, bringing itself back up into green health. Eventually, after a long war of attrition, it runs out of Milk Drinks, and we're able to down the stupid cow, earning us our 3rd Johto Gym badge, but unfortunately, not without casualty. No time to waste though, as our next encounter is available, being the static Sudowoodo, which gave our team actually a lot of trouble, bringing Reno really low in health, but fortunately for us, it stays paralyzed long enough and Harrisburg is able to stay in, throw a couple Pokeballs, and add the Rock-type False Street to the squad, giving us our new 5th team member. We also get a Stantler, which I'm gonna be honest with you, doesn't get really any use in this run. And a Marill, which I will spoil, does get actually quite a lot of use in this run, as water types are usually pretty good in Nuzlocke, and although it doesn't get huge power in this generation, its decent bulk and solid move pool makes it a valuable addition to the team. Next up is rival number 3 here in the Burn Tower. He leads off with Haunter, and I lead off with our new team member, Jackson, the Sudowoodo. It goes for a Curse, and a Rock Throw downs the Ghost, leading into Croconaw. Now, if you know, Curse damage doesn't actually do damage if you get a KO in Generation 2. So we're able to not take any damage from Curse and get a free switch into Olympia, who once again nails a 60% accurate Hypnosis. Is Olympia secretly holding a wide lens in a generation that it doesn't exist? Who knows? And speaking of luck, Croconaw is taking quite a snooze here, and it stays asleep for a very long time before we whittle it down with a ton of Pecs, leading into his next team member, Magnemite. Now this thing we don't really have a good counter for, except for Boston, who comes in on a Supersonic. Unfortunately, I don't want to hit myself in confusion, so I switch into Harrisburg on a Sonic Boom, which always does a fixed 20 damage no matter what your type is. It's a typeless move. A Sonic Boom brings down Boston to 47 HP, but an Ember downs the Magnet in one hit, leading into Zubat. Now, if you know anything about Zubat, it's not the strongest Pokemon in the world. Despite hitting a critical hit bite, 2 Embers bring it down into the red, and one more headbutt from Boston downs the rival once and for all, bringing us up to 3-0 against him and leading us into the fight against the 4th gym leader, the Ghost user, Morty. Now, Morty leads off with his first Ghastly, and we left with Olympia. Olympia is a normal type, so his Ghost type moves can't damage it. So I like to stay in here and go for a Reflect, as Ghastly goes for Curse. I don't want this thing to mean look me, so I gamble on another 60% accurate Hypnosis, which guess what? It hits. Olympia, wide lens user in Generation 2 before we bring in Tallahassee, the Azumarill. Now, hear me out here. Rollout is super OP in Generation 2. And 2 hits down the Ghastly, leading into Haunter. Now, Rollout is like super powered at this point, which means it has a high damage chance against Haunter here. The 4th one takes it out, leading into Gengar, who mean looks in Tallahassee, but Rollout has 240 power on the 5th hit, which obviously one-shots the Gengar. We stay in here against Haunter, who hits a mean look in a Nightshade, but after a second Nightshade leaves us on 7 HP, a 3rd turn Rollout downs the Haunter, earning us our 4th Johto Gym badge. After downing the Kimono Girls, we get the HM for Surf, which is going to be pretty nice here, giving Tallahassee a 90 power stab move here, which will also be useful for any water encounters in the future. Like this Mantine here, who we capture, which will be a pretty powerful team member, a super specially bulky Pokemon with a water and flying type. Should be a great addition to the team. Just in time to get a flying type too, as we take on the 5th gym leader, the fighting user Chuck, who uses strength himself on a boulder here before we take him on. He leads off with his trusty Primate, the level 27 Pokemon, before we bring in Columbus, the Ledian. The reason we bring in Ledian here is because it has a Reflect and also is a bug and flying type, which 4 times resists fighting moves. And they go for Comet Punch here, which is probably one of the worst things you can use against this Primate because it has Rage. And every successive hit of Comet Punch would boost up Rage. So I keep just spamming Supersonic here, gambling and hitting it multiple times, but it's 55% accuracy. And since Primate has such high attack, itself hitting itself in confusion actually has a decent amount of damage. A Fury Switch brings us down to 52 HP, and a Comet Punch downs the monkey, leading into Poliwrath. Now, this thing has the potential to do a lot of damage due to its Mind Reader and Dynamic Punch duo, as Dynamic Punch only has 50 accuracy usually, but if it uses those two in succession, Dynamic Punch is guaranteed to hit. A 100 power fighting move with a 100% chance to confuse. Speaking of confuse, we gamble on a 55% accurate Supersonic, which we're gods at hitting in this run, and Polyrathis has to go for the genius combo of Mind Reader and Surf, which already has 100 accuracy. I switch in Columbus just to be a sack fodder here, where we bring in Atlanta back in, and after a couple Surfs, chip down the Polyrath, we earn ourselves a relatively painless 5th gym badge. But what's not painless is losing Reno the Dunsparce to a stupid self-destructing Geodude before taking on the Rocket Admin here in the Mahogany Hideout. So she leads off with an Arbok, and the reason why I decided to show this is because in the Heart Gold and Soul Silver Remix, this is a double battle, which can actually prove to be challenging when you have an AI teammate. However, as most things in this game compared to the remakes are, very underwhelming for the most part, as all the double battles are single battles. Some of the Pokemon just have awful movesets, especially with your rival, and especially the Team Rocket subplot of this game just have really low leveled and relatively easy Pokemon. Nothing against the Gen 2 games, just for the most part, they are much easier and much less interesting than their remakes in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Regardless of this fact, we go to take on the would-be 7th Gym Leader, but in a Nuzlocke, the 6th Gym Leader price, due to his level cap being 4 levels lower than the traditional 6th Gym Leader Jasmine. We go to the Tallahassee here and go for a rollout. After a defense scroll with doubles its power, CLX takes 3 to go down, meaning that Dugong comes in on a 4th turn rollout, which is enough to one-shot it, leading into Piloswine. And since Piloswine is ground type, it's only neutral. However, the 5th turn rollout being 240 power eviscerates us, earning us our 6th gym badge really easily, leading us to back-to-back gym fights, taking on the 7th gym leader, Jasmine, who's up with Magnemite. Unfortunately, we cannot get Typhlosion for this fight, as the level cap is 1 level lower than Typhlosion's evolution level. However, Quilava has just enough power to get this done, as Flame Wheel brings Steelix into the red, it misses a rock throw, and Jasmine just gets heal locked as we outspeed. We get a burn, doesn't even matter, as the second Flame Wheel finishes up the Steelix, leading into her second Magnemite, which, as if you saw from the first one, it's also level 30, and one more Flame Wheel eviscerates the Magnet, earning us an easy 7th gym badge. Next up, we take on the Rocket Admin here on the top of the radio tower, which actually has potential to be dangerous. If you watch any of my Heart Gold and Soul Silver runs, you know that these Pokemon can use self-destruct. That's why I brought in Jackson here, my rock type. And as you can see, from 32 HP, Weezing crits a self-destruct, killing my Sudowoodo Jackson, our 5th loss of the run. Very frustrating. Fortunately for us, we do have other encounters we missed early in the game, such as the Phanpy here, which has a chance of fleeing, so I catch it in an Ultra Ball here, as well as Apom, who won't get much use in this run, I'm going to be honest with you here. Leading into our underground fight here with the rival. Once again, the rival in this game tends to be really underwhelming. His team really doesn't have anything special for the most part, and he tends to be pretty underleveled with bad movesets. Even in his final fight in Victory Road, as I mean to spoil here, his Feraligatr only has Water Gun for a stab move. That is absolutely terrible for a late game fight, and that's just a recurring theme here in these Generation 2 games that I tend to bring up here in this run. We use our newly found team member Topeka, the Donphan, to take on his final 3 team members, earning us the right to take on the final Rocket Executive at the top of the radio tower. He leads off with a Houndour, a Headbutt does over half, he hits a Bite down to about a third, and one more Headbutt downs the Fire Dog, leading into Coughing. A single Fire Punch knocks this Coughing into the Shadow Realm, leading into Houndoom. Now Houndoom can do some pretty good damage here with Crunch. Doesn't really have a chance here as it flinches. A Fate Attack does pretty pitiful damage, and one final Headbutt downs the Fire Dog, and finally ends the stupid Rocket subplot. We catch a few final team members, including Swinub and Gligar, 2 more ground types to add to our collection before taking on the 8th and final gym leader, Claire, the Dragon user. And this gym fight tends to cause a lot of problems, both in the Gen 2 games and the remakes. Is there Kingdra having no legitimate weaknesses besides Dragon, but you can't really get a Dragon type at this point in the game, makes this fight pretty difficult. 2 Icy Winds down the Dragonair as it just misses a Thunder Wave, leading into her second Dragonair. I elect to switch here into Juno, absorbing a Thunder Wave due to my ground type, and going for a Blizzard, which misses. A Dragon Breath fortunately does not paralyze, neither does the second one, and a Blizzard connects, one-shotting the Dragonair despite my bad special attack. In comes Kingdra, and I go for an Endure here, just seeing if it's going to go for Surf. And fortunately for us, the AI is pretty solid here in Generation 2 compared to Gen 1, and a Surf would have killed Juno here if we did not go for an Endure. We bring in Olympia here on a Surf, which is about a third, and I like to gamble on a Hypnosis. Unfortunately, Olympia's Wide Lens luck runs out here as she goes down to a Hyper Beam, ending her run. Unfortunately for us, nothing, unfortunately for us, really. I didn't really need Olympia. We got a free switch here into Atlanta. After a smoke screen, I elect to switch into Tallahassee, who comes in on a missed smoke screen, as AI in Generation 1 and 2 have a 1 in 4 chance to miss status moves, regardless if it uses Mind Reader, if its accuracy is raised or any circumstance. We end up switching around, bringing Atlanta on a Hyper Beam, who takes it moderately effectively, having a free turn here due to the recharge, getting a relatively soft Icy Wind. Not sure what to do here. I have to switch, and I bring in Tallahassee, who is at full health. He did the Hyper Beam actually really well before bringing Kingdra into the red with his strength. On the recharge turn, Claire heals it before we go for a defense curl, allowing us to take another Hyper Beam relatively effectively, getting another free turn to hit a relatively soft strength. Another strength brings into the yellow, but a Dragon Breath brings them to 31 HP. I gamble here with a strength, hoping it gets a low roll, but it high rolls, downing Tallahassee and getting us our 6th death of the run. We bring in Atlanta here to get an Icy Wind, gets the speed drop, allowing us to outspeed on the next turn, bringing in our final Dragonair. But losing Tallahassee here really hurts, as it was a valuable member of the team. Despite a paralysis, we take a slam with a 4 HP despite the crit, and one more Icy Wind downs the Dragonair, earning us our 8th and final Johto Gym badge. Fortunately for us, we do have one final water encounter, that being the water and electric type Chincho, who we add to the squad. This should be a very valuable team member going into the Elite Four. We did not have an electric type, and we're able to bring one in here to help us out with the final rival fight, which once again, like I said, is super underwhelming. I just speed it up here to show you what happens. We're never in any real danger in this fight, as the rival just has really bad move pools and is relatively low level for this point in the game. Our Pokemon are in the low to mid 40s, those are in the low to mid 30s, which is not ideal for this point in the game. Annapolis actually does get relatively low before downing for Alligator with a Fly. Fortunately for us, its best move is literally Water Gun at this point in the game. We bring in Topeka, who hits a couple Fury attacks on the Kadabra, earning us our victory over Silver. I decided to get one final encounter here, finding the special Headbutt tree and catching a Heracross and a Master Ball before deciding our final Elite Four team. And here we go. We have Boston, Juneau, Atlanta, Annapolis, Augusta, and Dover, leading us into Elite Four Will. Now, in the earlier Pokemon generations, Gens 1 through 4, where the Elite Four progress in levels as you go, the first one tends to be the easiest, as a single Thunder Punch downs the Xatu, leading into Slowbro. Now, obviously, we're not going to leave in Boston here against Slowbro, as it is a water type, and it is super bulky, but despite Amnesia, after a Confusion to get some chip damage on the Slowbro, Spark actually does start doing pretty solid damage, thanks to its super effectiveness. Despite the confusion, Slowbro breaks through and hits a Psychic before a second Spark brings it low and paralyzes it, but through Parafusion, it still manages to hit a Psychic, bringing us down to a nice 69 HP. Next out comes Executor, and it being a Grass type, we bring in Boston on a Psychic, which it takes relatively well, with about a third HP remaining, before a Fire Punch burns this tree to the ground, leading into the second Xatu. Now, this Xatu being a higher level, Thunder Punch is actually a range, and it does not KO the Xatu, as a Psychic brings Boston pretty low down to 51 HP, but a second Thunder Punch after a Max Potion does get the KO, leaving just Jinx, and a super effective Fire Punch downs the Ice type in one hit, earning us a relatively painless gym battle versus Elite Four Will. Next up is Koga, and if you watch a lot of Gen 2 runs on YouTube, you know that Koga has a reputation of not being very difficult thanks to his bad Pokemon and bad move pool, which is a recurring theme in Gen 2. One Fire Punch downs the relatively weak Ariados, leading into Fortress. No idea why the AI sends this out here. It's 4 times weak to fire and goes down in one hit. Next up is Muck, which can be annoying with Minimize and Toxic. But Boston, being the absolute trooper that she is, manages to drill multiple Fire Punches through Minimize, not taking any toxic damage, and downing the Muck in 3 hits, leading into Crobat. Now, this Crobat is also annoying, as it has Double Team. Thankfully, though, we do hit a Thunder Punch here after a full restore, but unfortunately, after that, we do miss our second Thunder Punch, allowing Crobat to hit a relatively soft wing attack with toxic damage. However, a third Thunder Punch hits, and we down Crobat, leading into Venomoth. Knowing I can one-shot it with Fire Punch, I stay in, and the crit did not matter there, leading into nothing as we defeat Koga. Once again, a relatively easy Elite Four victory. Third up is Bruno, and in Kanto, not typically known for his power, but here in Johto, he actually is a relatively formidable foe. He starts up with Hitmontop, and I lit up with Dover, the Heracross, making her debut battle. A Horn Attack does a little less than half, or a Quick Attack does very little damage. I go for a Reversal to keep it out of Potion range, and a second Horn Attack downs the Hitmontop. Next up is Hitmonchan, and fortunately for us, the devs thought it was a good idea to give this the Elemental Punches, despite its horrible special attack, and even though it's using Thunder Punch, which is quad effective, our great special defense and its horrible special attack allow Atlanta to safely stay in, tank quad effective Thunder Punches, and down the Hitmonchan with a few Thunder Punches. In comes Onix, and we outspeed and eviscerate it with a quad effective Waterfall, leading into Machamp. Now this thing is actually very dangerous, knowing Rock Slide and Cross Chop. Atlanta can't take a Rock Slide, however Dover can, so we switch her in and tank a Rock Slide. We have to switch here, so we bring in Augusta, who's also relatively tanky and takes a Rock Slide pretty well, before I like to stay in and go for a Confuse Ray. Due to Machamp's pretty high attack, a hit in Confusion would do a lot, however, it breaks out and hits a very strong Cross Chop. It breaks through Confusion again and brings Annapolis down to 37 HP before breaking out of Confusion altogether and taking down Annapolis, giving us our first casualty of the Elite Four. Not ideal as we bring in Boston here and go for a Fire Punch, which does a little less than half for connecting with a Rock Slide with about half HP. We stay in and go for a Fire Punch, where a Rock Slide brings us down to 18 HP, and Bruno unfortunately goes for a Max Potion. We can't gamble it here. We're forced to switch as we bring in Judo here on a Rock Slide. Doesn't do a whole lot of damage to take it with 119 HP. If we're going for a Blizzard, he misses Cross Chop and I miss Blizzard, but then we get lucky. He misses Cross Chop, I hit Blizzard, and I freeze, allowing a Powder Snow to take out the Machamp, leading to his final team member, Hitmonlee. We get lucky again here, as we go for a Blizzard, and he misses a high jump kick, allowing us to bring us into the yellow. We go for a double kick, which does pretty big damage, and a Powder Snow leaves him in the red. My team's looking in really, really bad shape here, so I have to get really lucky to get out of this fight unscathed. We bring in Dober, who takes the double kick really effectively, where we down the Hitmonlee with a Horn Attack, earning us a very hard-fought victory over Bruno. We said Encanto, not so good, and Johto, pretty good. Next up is Karen, and she leads up with Umbreon here. This Umbreon is really annoying, as it's super tanky and loves to go for Sand Attack, so I just switch around here and whittle it down before Gengar comes in. Now, Gengar, once again, loves to be annoying here, as this thing knows Destiny Bond, as you'll see soon. It knows Curse, Mean Look, and Destiny Bond, which is not ideal. We stay in and gamble the 55% accurate Supersonic, which of course we hit, because that's what we do in this run, unless you're Olympia in the Claire battle, who cannot hit a Hypnosis to save her life through Sand Attack, which I can't blame her. Dover comes in and gets immediately paralyzed on a lick, because of course she does. And I realize I can't actually hurt this Gengar, so I keep going for Leer, hoping that it'll do more damage, hurting itself to Confusion. Unfortunately, it hangs on in the red and it starts spamming Destiny Bond. I end up switching around between a bunch of team members, wasting it out of its 5 PP of Destiny Bond before we can finally get in safely with Augusta, who of course gets paralyzed on the first lick. I accidentally missed clicking go for Thunder Wave, and with us both paralyzed, it goes for a lick. We take almost no damage, and we finally take out the stupid Gengar with a Surf. We got super unlucky with the paralysis here, Renee. We don't really particularly need Augusta at this point, as we can switch in Boston on Vileplume, taking a Petal Dance, taking almost no damage, and eviscerating the plant with one single Fire Punch. Next up is Murkrow, who's not particularly known for its strength, and a single Thunder Punch zaps the bird out of the air, leading to her final Pokemon, Houndoom. Now, I like to stay in here and go for a Thunder Punch, which does about a third, and a Crunch does not lower our special defense, fortunately, meaning we can take another one. We get the Paralysis, hang on with 33 HP, and I decided to switch here to be safe, going into our good friend Atlanta, the Mantine. It being a Water type obviously helps. A Waterfall does about more than half. A Crunch brings them to 37 HP, but due to the paralysis, we outspeed, take it down with a Waterfall, and take down Karen Deathless, leaving us 5 Pokemon to take on the Dragon Master Lance. Will this fight go smoothly? Let's find out. Lance, of course, leads to this trusty Gyarados, and we lead with Augusta, the electric-type fish. One Spark does not quite do enough to take out the Gyarados, but a Surf only does 20 damage before a second Spark zaps the fish out of the air. Next up is his first Dragonite, and I like to stay in here and go for Thunder Wave, which fortunately hits. Thankfully, Dragonite's Thunder Wave fails, because the A has a 1 in 4 chance to fail in Generations 1 and 2. We bring in Juno here as Dragonite gets paralyzed, and after missing a Blizzard, the second one connects, thankfully one-shotting the Dragonite. In comes Charizard here, and I do elect to switch out into Boston, who has an electric-type move and can tank Flamethrowers relatively well. After a soft Flamethrower hits, a Thunder Punch is about 2/3 to Charizard before a second Flamethrower keeps Boston in the green. One more Thunder Punch zaps the Charizard out, and in comes Aerodactyl, the Rock and Flying type. Obviously not going to leave my Fire type in here. So after a lot of going back and forth, I do eventually elect to switch into Juno, the Piloswine, as I do believe he can take a Rock Slide here due to his ground typing. We take a Rock Slide in the green before going for a Powder Snow, and thanks to taking a Hyper Beam, we do get a free turn here to bring Aerodactyl down into the yellow. Unfortunately here, I don't really have a safe switch, so I let Juno go down to the Hyper Beam, allowing a safe switch into our next team member. After a lot of back and forth, I do eventually elect to go with Augusta the Lantern.
Due to the recharge turn, we're able to get a free Surf, downing the Aerodactyl, leading into Lance's next Dragonite. This one level 47. We go for a Thunder Wave, which it fails, and once again we connect with ours. The luck with status moves in this one has been unbelievable. After setting up Parafusion on the Dragonite, it hits itself in Confusion, allowing us a relatively safe switch into Atlanta, as it once again fails a Thunder Wave. Shout out to Generation 2. A Never Melt Ice boosted Icy Wind brings Dragonite into the red, and one more downs it. Last but not least is his final Dragonite, the level 51, but I like to stay in as it goes for Safeguard, meaning it can't get frozen, I guess. Its speed gets dropped due to an Icy Wind, and one more downs the Dragonite, earning us the victory over Champion Lance and winning us the run. Now, did I play this run well? Not particularly. I can't say that Generation 2 is, my forte, as we did lose 8, or for that fact, 9 Pokemon, if you count Juno the Piloswine. But I had a lot of fun in this run, actually. Generation 1 and 2 kind of have their own charm that no other generation really has. The quirks, obviously, aren't ideal for playing, but, every once in a while, it is nice to come in and just have some fun with these quirky games. Now, I did have a lot of fun with this run, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun making it. And it's fun to get back into that hardcore Nuzlocke realm. After playing Scarlet and Violet, it was nice to get back to the basics and play a classic Pokemon game. Now, if you guys like this kind of video, let me know in the comments below. And also let me know what else you'd like to see. I have fun making these types of videos, and now that I'm on winter break from school, I should be able to pump out a few more. I also want to get back in the solo run game, as solo runs, they're easy to make and they're a lot of fun for me too. So if you guys want to see solo runs, let me know below. Once again, I'm also open to testing out other games too. So if there is anything that you want out of me, let me know in the comments below. And I'd also appreciate it if you guys could leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you lasted long enough in this video, you must be a fan of the content. So leaving a like, commenting, and subscribing would mean a lot to me. Once again, thank you guys very much, and I'll see you guys in whatever comes next. Peace out.